What's up, everybody? On my way to court, and it's not about me. Anyway, Bourgault day 2. I just wanted to give a rundown yesterday. I wasn't able to say it because a lot to talk about. Just the key witness yesterday was Katie Gould, the veterinarian who was the attending veterinarian who was called to by Bourgault the night that the horse was injured. But the defense attorney, his attorney, really ripped into her. He had her upset a few times. You know, she's not built for this. Nobody is. Trying to discredit her, test her expertise, her education, all that, her knowledge. Tried to force her into answering questions as a pathologist and not just the veterinarian who treated the horse. The long and short of it, some of the accusations and the assertions that he's made are, first of all, Herman Schwarzenstruber has abused the horse. The horse has never been treated. See, he's taking things like he looked into the horse as a bleeder and saying that the horse was out in 86-degree weather that day. Fred Bourgault did not have permission to touch the horse, but he brought him in because he felt bad for him because the horse was lame. Untreated for bleeding, when she had to explain again, we all know. Well, treatment goes as normally in a racehorse. You're going to treat him at the racetrack. And he goes on to, well, why didn't you do anything if you knew this horse was bleeding from exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhaging and, you know, spinning things. And that's their job. And like I tell a lot of people after, you know, who were upset, I said that's what they're supposed to do. However, it's the judge's job to see through that, and it's also the prosecution's job to clarify all that. And we spoke with them in depth both times during each recess and afterwards. Really good guy, Mr. Borg. So he goes on to ask, well, you know, spinning 1,000 different ways on how this could have happened. Horses hurt themselves. He shows one of the fence posts, gate posts, we all know, normally are set in concrete. This one was filled. It's PVC fencing, so they filled it to the top. And he says, well, couldn't this have happened had that horse run into that fence full speed? I wanted to, scream. Yeah, if he ran into that full speed, that fence would be laying on the ground. But he's trying to force her into making an incorrect answer to discredit her, and she did very well on either stating the fact that she like she said when it came to the fences, I'm not a fence builder. So rather than make, like me saying, well, it would have broken half, it would have just snapped, and you would have seen if he hit himself and whatever. But then he tried to also say, well, the horse was out there with another horse, shoot to thrill. Then he goes on to say, well, what if he was alone? Now, right there, to me, that's where the prosecution should have stood up. Well, you're speculating in something that did not happen. It's in the testimony that 2 horses were turned out together. And according to everyone, Mr. Bourgault, being the horse-loving individual that he is, was concerned for the horse, when in fact, his testimony, that'll come out more, and it was in the opening arguments, that he wanted the paddock. Now, I mean, you all know how many times are people fighting for paddock space. And Herman was at the races, and his 2 horses were out. So Bourgault took it upon himself to go and take the horses out. Also, shoot to thrill got loose. In her statements, 2 other there's a lot more, I gotta go through the notes. She goes on to say that the prosecution asked her, did you notice anything about Fred while you were treating Finish Line that day? And she says, yeah. When he came in the barn, he was limping. And this is where the story of the he stepped on my foot thing goes on, began. So she said, what happened to you? You all right? He says, yeah, he stepped on my foot when I was bringing him in out of the field. So, us as horsemen can just say, well, we know the guy. He's pissed off first that he wants the paddock. Brings the horse in. They also said, well, this horse had a bad hock. He asks, did you treat it? She said, how you doing? yeah, he had blood in his hock, whatever, and he goes, oh, that could be deadly, and, you know, they're just going to take everything. And so he says, well, he was standing out there, noticeably lame with his leg up and foot up, and she kept correcting him, leg up. So, and then he goes on to say that the horse was turned out and he was sound, he had just gotten over it, so what's the problem? Then he goes on to say again, it was too hot out. You know, they're going to do whatever they have to do to post blame to not his client. And then what else was there? I can't remember. I got to do this. Like I said, I'm going to do a live stream. There's 8 or 9 more witnesses. Today, I believe it's going to be his ex-girlfriend, Brianna, the New York State Trooper Detective, Holly Schoonmaker, which I can't wait to meet her. Katie Gould has to come back in and finish her redirect and whatever other questions this guy had for her. I felt bad for her. She walked out of there just deer in the headlights. But you know something? No matter what happens, it's about time we got one of these people in court facing 2 felony charges and having to answer to the death of an animal. They brought up the fact again, the timing. Turns out, see, we were on we thought that the horse died like 5, 6 o'clock. She came in, just put him down. No, she did a very thorough examination. Oh, this is where he goes into what could have happened. He had West Nile virus, you know, whatever. Throw in there anything he could to make it stick. And she would just shoot it down. Well, how could you say it's not wasn't the virus when in fact he had 4 out of the 5 symptoms? And she goes, yeah, but the one symptom he didn't have, which is the most important one, is he had no fever. So she had her ducks in a row. And that's it. Just got here. It should start around 10:30 again. And the other thing is nobody from the industry showed up. Nobody from the sport. 2 people did come through for an hour that I know. And that was it. One guy from Belmont Park who just wanted to be here from the thoroughbred side, believe it or not. A couple people from a horse association who are out to end all funding of harness racing and thoroughbred racing, who I had lunch with. And I don't lie, guys, I told you, if you can't show up here, it shows you don't care. And I know you got work to do, and I know you got a race and everything, but somebody from the industry should be here to represent the sport. Where's Wendy Ross? Where's Heather Vitale? I mean, come on. Me? Again. You know how they say the biggest loser and dirtbag in harness racing is me. Here I am sitting in for you people over someone who's been accused of beating a horse with a weapon, collapsing his frontal lobe on his skull, left frontal lobe. And then we went on to that, you know, why wasn't there a laceration, a cut? Well, if it was a blunt object, it wouldn't leave one. And she's treated many horses. You know, again, if you really want to know what's going on, again, why isn't there somebody here reporting on this from the sport industry business of harness racing? Disgusting. Anyway, catch y'all later. I'll have updates as this goes along. Hopefully, like I said, they said, what do you think? That's the circumstantial evidence. A lot of, you know, he said, she said, we have evidence, but can you pin it directly to him with beyond the shadow of a doubt? If he somehow walks, he'll never get a license again. If the USTA is smart on this one, they'll never reinstate him with a membership. And he's going to be just vilified throughout the industry anywhere he goes or tries to hide. So, it's still a win. Catch us all later.